Hello, my dear friends, and welcome back to Grandma Lily English. Today, I want to tell you a story about a young man named Daniel. Daniel was 22 years old. He was young, confident, and had a bright future ahead of him. He had many friends. He had many opportunities to have fun, and more than a few girls were interested in him. But while many young people around him were enjoying their free time, Daniel was thinking about something completely different. He was thinking about his future. He had a dream. He wanted to build his own technology company, but at that time, he had almost nothing. No office, no team, no investors, just an old laptop, a small amount of savings, and an idea. This is the story of how that small idea became a real company. And while you listen, pay attention to the useful English words and expressions throughout the story. Now, let's begin. The young man who chose his future. Daniel was 22 years old when he made an unusual decision. While his friends were going out on weekends, Daniel was usually working. While they were planning trips, he was learning about business. And while some of his friends were thinking about their next party, Daniel was thinking about his next project. One evening, Daniel was sitting with his friends in a cafe. They were talking about a trip they wanted to take the following weekend. One of his friends looked at Daniel and said, "Daniel, why don't you ever come with us?" Daniel said, "Sometimes I have too much work." His friend laughed. "Work? You're 22?" Everyone at the table laughed. Another friend said, "You're young. You should enjoy your life." Daniel smiled again. "I know." Then he looked out the window. "But I also want to build something." His friends became quiet. "Build what?" Daniel thought for a moment. "A company." Everyone laughed again. One of his friends shook his head. "You're too serious." Daniel laughed with them, but deep inside, he was serious. Daniel had an idea for a simple technology product. He wanted to create an easy-to-use app that could help small shops keep track of their sales, products, and daily expenses. It wasn't a revolutionary idea, but Daniel believed it could solve a real problem. The problem was, he didn't have much money. He didn't have a powerful computer. He didn't have an office, and he didn't have a team. He only had an old laptop and a small amount of savings, so he started alone. Every night after work, Daniel came home, ate dinner, and opened his laptop. He watched free lessons. He learned about software. He studied business. He wrote down ideas. And slowly, he started building the first version of his app. Sometimes he worked until 2 a.m. Sometimes the program stopped working. Sometimes he spent hours trying to fix one small problem. But he kept going. He told himself, "I don't need to build everything today. I just need to take the next step." Daniel's friends continued to enjoy their lives. They went to parties. They traveled. They spent money on clothes, restaurants, and entertainment. Daniel didn't think they were doing anything wrong. Sometimes he even wished he could join them. But he had made a choice. He wanted to build his future first. There were also several girls who were interested in Daniel. One of them was named Sophia. Sophia really liked him. She liked his confidence. She liked his sense of humor. And she liked the way he talked about his dreams. One evening, Sophia asked him, "Why are you always so busy?" Daniel smiled. "I'm trying to build something." Sophia looked at him. "And where do I fit into your plans?" Daniel became quiet. He liked Sophia, but he knew he couldn't give her the time and attention she deserved. Finally, he said, "You're a wonderful person, Sophia, but I don't want to start something serious if I can't give it the attention it deserves." Sophia looked disappointed. "You always choose the future over the present." Daniel looked down. "Maybe you're right." They stayed friends for a while, but eventually they went their separate ways. Daniel didn't know if he had made the right decision, but he continued working. After almost a year, Daniel finally finished the first version of his app. He was excited. He showed it to several small business owners. He expected them to love it, but they didn't. Some people weren't interested. Others said it was too complicated. One shop owner told him, "I don't need this." Daniel went home that night feeling disappointed. He had spent almost all his savings, and nobody wanted his product. For a few days, Daniel didn't work on the app. He simply sat in his room and thought. Maybe his friends were right. Maybe he was wasting his youth. Maybe he should stop. But then he opened his notebook. At the top of the first page, he had written, "Learn, practice, improve." Daniel looked at the words. Then he wrote a new question underneath them. What problem am I really trying to solve? That question changed everything. Daniel went back to the shops, but this time he didn't try to sell his app. He asked questions. What problems do you have every day? How do you keep track of your sales? What takes the most time? What would make your work easier? He listened carefully. He discovered that many small shop owners didn't need a complicated system. They needed something simple, something they could understand quickly. So Daniel changed his product. He removed unnecessary features. He made the design simpler. He made the app easier to use. And after several more months, he tried again. This time, one small shop agreed to use it. It was Daniel's first real customer. The shop owner told him, "It's simple. I like it." Daniel smiled. He didn't make much money from that first customer, but for Daniel, it was a huge moment. Someone was actually using something he had built. Then something unexpected happened. The shop owner told another shop owner about Daniel's app. That person became a customer too. Then another shop joined. Then another. Slowly. Daniel had more customers. He realized something important. His idea wasn't becoming successful because he had built the perfect product. It was becoming successful because he was listening to people and improving it. But Daniel couldn't do everything alone anymore, so he hired his first employee, then a second. They moved from Daniel's small room into a tiny office. It wasn't impressive. There were only a few desks. The walls were almost empty. But Daniel loved that little office. He had finally built something real. A year later, the company had 10 employees. They had hundreds of small businesses using their app. Daniel started receiving messages from businesses outside his city. Then one day, he received an email from a company in another country. They had heard about his product from one of Daniel's existing customers. They wanted to test it. Daniel couldn't believe it. A few years earlier, he had been sitting alone in his bedroom with an old laptop. Now, a company in another country wanted to use something he had built. The first international deal was small, but it opened a new door. Soon, other businesses became interested. The company improved the app. They added new languages. They added better support. And slowly, the product began to spread to other markets. But success didn't make Daniel's life perfect. One day, one of the company's biggest clients complained about a serious problem. The team had made a mistake. Daniel was responsible for the company, so he couldn't hide. He called the client himself. Daniel said, "I'm sorry, We made a mistake and we are going to fix it." The client was angry, but Daniel listened. He didn't make excuses. He promised to solve the problem. His team worked late that night. The next morning, the problem was fixed. The client stayed with the company. That experience taught Daniel another important lesson. Building a company isn't only about creating something good. It's also about taking responsibility when things go wrong. Years passed. The small company became much bigger. The tiny office became a large, modern workspace. 10 employees became dozens. The simple app became a complete business platform, and businesses in several countries were now using Daniel's product. One evening, after everyone had gone home, Daniel stayed alone in his office. He opened a drawer. Inside was his old laptop, the same laptop he had used when he started. Daniel smiled. He remembered those nights, the failures, the empty bank account, the rejected ideas, the people who had told him that he was too serious, and Sophia. He wondered where she was now. He didn't feel angry. He didn't regret the past. He simply hoped she was happy. Then Daniel looked around his office. He realized something. He hadn't simply built a company. He had built himself. But Daniel also understood something else. He hadn't missed his entire youth. He had simply made different choices. He had turned down some invitations. He had postponed some relationships because he wasn't ready to give them the time they deserved. He had spent many nights working instead of going out, but he had also learned something valuable. You don't have to live exactly like everyone else. You have to decide what matters to you. The next morning, one of the younger employees came into Daniel's office. He was 23 years old. He looked tired. He said, "Daniel, how did you become successful?" Daniel smiled. "Do you really want to know?" The young man nodded. Daniel leaned back in his chair. "I wasn't always successful. I failed many times. I made bad decisions. I lost money. I worked when other people were having fun. But most importantly," Daniel paused, "I kept learning." The young employee asked, "So what's the secret?" Daniel smiled. "There isn't one." Then he pointed toward the old laptop on his desk. "Start small. Stay focused. Listen to people. Learn from your mistakes. And don't expect success to happen overnight." That evening, Daniel walked out of his office. The sun was setting. He stopped for a moment and looked at the city. Years ago, he had been just a young man with an old laptop and a dream. Now he had a company, a team, customers in several countries, and a future he had built with his own hands. Daniel smiled. He didn't think he had chosen the perfect life. He had simply chosen the life he wanted to build. And perhaps that was the most important choice of all. Because sometimes you have to say no to something you want today, to build something you want even more tomorrow. And Daniel had learned that success isn't about being better than everyone else. It's about becoming better than the person you were yesterday. He looked at the city one last time. Then he smiled and walked home. The journey wasn't over. But this time, Daniel wasn't afraid of the future. He had built it. What a journey. Now let's learn some useful English words and expressions from Daniel's story. 1. Future. Future means the time that comes after now. Daniel was thinking about his future. Repeat. I want to build a better future. 2. Goal. A goal is something you want to achieve. Daniel's goal was to build his own company. Repeat. My goal is to improve my English. 3. Focus. Focus means giving your full attention to something. Daniel stayed focused on his goal. Repeat. I need to stay focused. 4. Discipline. Discipline means controlling yourself and continuing to do what you need to do. Daniel worked with discipline. Repeat. Discipline helps me reach my goals. 5. Sacrifice. A sacrifice is something you give up to achieve something more important. Daniel made sacrifices to build his company. Repeat. Success sometimes requires sacrifice. 6. Opportunity. An opportunity is a good chance to do something. The first international customer was a great opportunity. Repeat, I don't want to miss this opportunity. 7. Failure. Failure means not succeeding at something. Daniel experienced failure many times. Repeat, failure can teach us something. 8. Risk. A risk is the possibility of something going wrong. Daniel took a risk when he started his company. Repeat, sometimes you have to take a risk. 9. Build. Build means to make or create something over time. Daniel built his company from nothing. Repeat, I want to build something meaningful. 10. Achieve. Achieve means to successfully reach a goal. Daniel achieved his dream. Repeat, I want to achieve my goals. 11. Give up. Give up means to stop trying. Daniel failed, but he never gave up. Repeat, I will never give up. 12. Pay off. When something pays off, your hard work finally produces a good result. Daniel's hard work finally paid off. Repeat, hard work pays off. Excellent. Remember, future, goal, focus, discipline, sacrifice, opportunity, failure, risk, build, achieve, give up, pay off. Don't just memorize these words. Try to use them, because when you use a new word, you make it part of your English. Now let's look at an important grammar point from Daniel's story. Today, we're going to learn the difference between the past simple and the past continuous. We use the past simple for a completed action in the past. For example, Daniel opened his laptop. He started his company. He hired his first employee. But we use the past continuous for an action that was happening at a particular time in the past. For example, Daniel was working. His friends were having fun. Now listen to this sentence. While his friends were having fun, Daniel was working. Both actions were happening at the same time. Here's another example. While Daniel was working, his friends were planning their next trip. Let's practice. While I was studying, my friends were playing. Again. While I was studying, my friends were playing. And one more. While she was working, her friends were having fun. Excellent. We often use while with the past continuous. While I was studying. While he was working. While they were traveling. Now you can create your own sentence. For example, while my friends were watching television, I was studying English. Very good. Remember, past simple tells us what happened. Past continuous tells us what was happening. Daniel's story isn't about giving up everything you enjoy. It's about knowing what matters to you. You don't have to follow everyone else. You don't have to build your future in the same way. But if you have a dream, give it your time, give it your effort, and give it a chance. Because the future you want tomorrow may depend on the choices you make today. Now it's your turn. This week, I want you to practice the past continuous. Write 2 sentences using while. For example, while my friends were watching a movie, I was studying English. And while my family was sleeping, I was working. Now make your own sentences, write them in the comments. And don't worry about mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning. Keep practicing and keep moving forward.
Grandma, Daniel really worked hard.
He did, Noah. But what do you think was his biggest strength?
He never gave up?
That's one of them. But I think he also learned how to stay focused when other people were doing something different.
So we don't have to live like everyone else?
Exactly, my dear Noah. Your journey is your own.
I like that.
And to all of you watching, thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed Daniel's story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Grandma Lily English, and share your past continuous sentences in the comments. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing, and keep building the future you want. Goodbye, my dear friends.
Goodbye, everyone. See you in our next English adventure.